Welcome to Beyond Referrals, the podcast exploring how trust, growth, and client relationships in financial services are evolving in the digital and AI age. I'm your host, Emily Armstrong. Let's dive in. Hey there, it's Emily. I just got off this episode with Nathan Donohue, and it was such a good one. I want to tell you a few quick points about why I'm excited about this one. Nathan Donohue built and scaled an RIA, Consilio Wealth Advisors, to over $500 million in just 5 years. And his answer to his success is something that I very much approve of. It was his niche focus in working with Amazon and Microsoft tech executives. So he's seen value and growth from the angle of someone who's actually built it. Today, he owns Sonoran Ridge Capital, and he invests in highly specialized client service businesses. So we talked all about what is value creation, how does a founder or an advisor build a valuable firm from the beginning and not at the very end when they're thinking about exiting. And the thing that got me the most is really just how he niched down and how much success that created for him, as well as we talked about organic and inorganic growth. So the quote that he said a few times that really stopped me, and I'm thinking about it even for my business, is the more valuable you are as a founder, the less valuable your business is. Let that one sink in. So we talked all about that. And if you've never thought about your practice as an asset that you could one day sell, you're really just kind of in the growth mode trying to build a book of business, you're going to want to hear this episode. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Nathan Donohue. Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond Referrals. I'm joined here by an amazing guest that I am very excited for you all to hear from. I have Nathan Donohue today, and Nathan is the founder of Sonoran Ridge Capital, a private investment firm focused on acquiring and operating niche service businesses. He previously built Consilio Wealth Advisors into one of the fastest growing independent RIAs, scaling to about $500 million in AUM through organic growth before a successful exit in 2025. So needless to say, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to growing and scaling a firm. Most recently, he served as a founding go-to-market lead at Vitals AI, an advisor intelligence platform providing practice benchmarking and data visibility for financial advisors. Nathan is an active member of the Entrepreneurs organization, where he served on the board as My EO chair and forum chair. He brings a builder's perspective to entrepreneurship through acquisition, having lived both sides of this equation of buying, building, and exiting businesses successfully. So we're going to dive in today on his story, his experience, and his mind as an investor. So Nathan, thank you so much for being here today. I can't wait to talk with you.
Thanks for having me, Emily. Looking forward to it.
Amazing. Yeah. So let's go into your story. And that's really impressive, just the amount of growth that you were able to achieve with your RIA, Consilio. I would love to hear how you built that firm, how you built it to $500 million in under 5 years in multiple states. Walk me through that. What was the actual strategy? What did the early days look like?
Yeah. Whenever I tell people this story, I try to attribute the growth to two main things in my mind. So the first of which was we were a very niche focused firm. So much so, I mean, if you landed right on our website, it had financial planning for technology professionals. And if we dig even further, our specialty was working with Amazon and Microsoft executives. So we were really dialed into a very specific niche. We even had it on our homepage of here's who we serve. We serve tech executives at this title and above, at these employers that are over this age, that have this much. And then our last little point on there as well was like, and you have to be a nice person. And we put like in parentheses, like that's actually a deal breaker if you're not. But what that did for us was by being hyper specific, it did two things. The first of which was we became really well known as subject matter experts in this particular niche. And the niche was very profitable. I mean, these are folks that have very high incomes. Our average client age was, I believe, 47 years old. And I think the average for an RIA is somewhere between 60 to 65. So most of our clients were in the accumulation phase. Any given year, anywhere from 30 to 50% of our net new AUM was from existing clients just making contributions. But we became the subject matter experts at working in that area, which really helped to like if you Googled Microsoft employee stock purchase plan, ESPP, I think we were the second Google result. We were ahead of
Mm.
Microsoft's benefits page.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that was one, just getting hyper specific and be like, we're going to go deep and we're going to know this better than anybody. One more point on that is that whenever we got into a call with a prospect, we could immediately speak their language. So it's like, oh, have you signed up for this? Tell me about this. You've got a vest coming up in 2 weeks in April. And so what that did is that just built rapport and trust really quickly because the prospect's like, oh, okay, I'm not the first time they've ever worked with a principal at Amazon or Microsoft. So that was really helpful. The other thing it did for us internally was it helped to productize our service. And what I mean by that is like most advisors, every prospect they meet with is a little bit different. They work at a different place, or this person's a business owner, this person's a doctor, this person's a lawyer. And so every time that happens, your team has to do research and kind of relearn each of those people. And your proposals might be a little bit different for all those people. And while each of the households we served was unique and different, there were a lot of similarities between them as well. And so when it came time for case prep, review prep, our team could just like hammer it out very efficiently and very effectively. We had a lot of templates, a lot of workflows that helped to run the business. But that was the additional benefit is that on the outside, it looked like we were doing very customized work. Internally, it was a really well-oiled machine.
I feel like there's so much to unpack there. And I have a few questions to follow up with that. How did you end up focusing on a niche like that so specifically just right off the bat?
Initially, it happened somewhat by default because I grew up in the Seattle, Washington area. And so we had Microsoft and Amazon, all those tech companies like right in our backyard. So just by default, by just being present in proximity, we got a lot of introductions to folks there. When we launched the RIA back in 2021, we wanted to be very outspoken and very direct about who we work with because I just read a number of studies that talked about how the more niche focused you are, the more introductions you get, your retention is better, your closing typically happens faster. And what I've observed is that I think most advisors shy away from this because, as you know probably better than anybody, it's so darn hard to get a new client. Like you have to work and work and work. Each one of those relationships is so valuable and so precious. And so what I've observed is a lot of advisors in the back of their mind is like, oh, well, if I try to choose this niche, let's say I want to work with, retiring Boeing employees or something, I'm going to be saying no to everybody else. And it's already so hard. Am I making my life even harder? And the answer to that is no, unequivocally no. It makes the saying yes to the right clients a lot easier. And we still got the introductions to mom and dad and the lawyer and the doctor and the next door neighbor. We still worked with all those people too. They didn't really care that we were a specialist in this one particular area because we could still deliver value as a generalist. But it really aided our conversion rates considerably when we were very upfront and very specific.
Every time I have a conversation with an advisor about the topic of choosing a niche, I'm going to send them this episode
Yeah.
because I mean, it's true. Like that is 100% my philosophy as well and my experience. The more specific you're getting with who you work for and who you work with, the better your results are going to be. And your story's such a really good example about that. When you were growing the firm, how much of your growth was outbound marketing type of strategy that you were doing versus just referrals and your niche specificity just doing the work for you?
I'd say both. We were 100% growing by referrals. So like we didn't do events. We ran the firm remotely. So like we didn't, I think all across all of our advisors, we maybe kept 2 in-person meetings all year across a team of like 10 or 11 people. So it was 100% remote. We didn't do events. We didn't do mailers. We tried paid ads for a little bit. Didn't really work for us. So we were 100% referral based. But what I would say is that our online presence was really strong. So like we had really hyper specific, very detailed deep dives for the different niches that we were working with. And so when somebody Googled us or looked us up, they could see, oh gosh, these guys have the playbook for executives at Microsoft. I'm learning they really know what they're talking about. So we had a lot of publicly available information that was quite visible as well.
Yeah, you're a good case study for what I'm doing with advisors of you have to choose a niche, you have to publish that in a way digitally so that you get the results and the outcomes that you got. So,
Yeah,
okay,
we did,
walk
and
me
we did it like right on the landing page. Like you go to the website, and the very first thing you see in big bold letters is financial planning for technology executives. It's like very upfront.
period.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So you obviously had great success in working with this group of people. How did you decide to exit the business? And what was that stage like for you? When you decided to exit, what made the timing right? What did that process teach you about what you had actually built? Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah. I want to add one more point to your last question, if I may, Emily, because I think the other
Mhm.
reason why we grew so quickly, because this is going to dovetail into the valuation part of the conversation, which is what you're just getting at. The other reason why I think we grew as quickly as we did and we were as successful as we were is we invested very aggressively in our team members. I think in that 4 or 5 year period, we added several CFPs, we added 2 CFAs, like we sponsored these team members to go and take the tests, gave them raises, gave them bonuses. And so we invested a lot in their development. And so by the end, they were quite capable of running a lot of these relationships and discussions on their own. But the people that had on the team were just insanely smart. They had good values, they cared deeply. And so there's this saying that I love, which is the more valuable you are, the less valuable your business is. And so my perspective when we
Mm.
started the firm was like, I want to be the worst financial advisor on the team because I'm not half bad to begin with. But if by the end of this, I'm the worst one here, which I was, like I'd be in client meetings and we would have our associates
Uh,
say, "Hey, did you think about this?" I'd be like, "I didn't even think about that. Like it's working." So I would say that is the second reason why we were as successful as we were was because we just invested aggressively in our people.
It's so smart because when you think about the business, the people, this is a relationship business. And if you're not building a team in the way that you did, you're really like what else are you investing in? And you
Mm,
don't have a distribution system. You don't have like this product that you're building in a factory. And so, yeah, to sum up your success, I'm hearing a few things. Investing in team members, having a niche focus, having that focus very clear digitally and doing really good work there, and I think kind of the rest takes care of itself.
yep.
It That's really amazing to hear all of that and to dig
Yep.
in. So yeah, tell me about the exit process and why did you choose that and what was that like for you as a founder of this business? You can take that a bunch of different angles, I'm sure.
Yeah. So the exit process, I mean, the decision was a difficult one to make. Like you pour a lot of time and energy into building something from nothing and having really wonderful people to work with. But ultimately, I was more interested in other types of industries. And I was like, I want to go and acquire and build other types of businesses. Process, I would say, was very thoughtful, very thorough. We probably spent over a year getting ready for it, and had a fairly lengthy transition as well. We also went through a valuation process, which was really enlightening to see, because they walk through every aspect of your business from the demographics of your book of business, your growth rates, your profitability, the team dynamics, how many licensed advisors you have, et cetera. I mean, there were probably 30 some odd different variables that would impact plus or minus your valuation. And there were a number of those where we did really well. There were a couple as well where this was actually a detractor. And so that was a really eye-opening experience. But to dovetail back to the point we were making a little bit ago, one of the things that really aided in the valuation was how developed the team was. So outside investor wants to understand if Nathan goes away, is this business still going to be here? Are the clients going to stick around? Are there enough licensed professionals to continue to uh, have the business not just operate, but continue to grow?
Yeah.
And how long have those relationships been there, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's why I come back to like the more tied in the owner operator, in many cases, the less valuable the business will actually be. Because like, again, the outside investor just wants to know you're going to leave at some point. Hopefully it's a long transition, but at some point you're going to depart. And is that going to, if it's done well, if the business is structured correctly, people will miss you, but operationally they shouldn't really notice. And I think we were quite successful on that front.
So going into your valuation, it sounds like you went into that in a really good place because you had already built this infrastructure, invested in the team. I feel like you could almost just like drop the mic right there. I've been in firms where I see that as the major issue ongoing, where it's
What's that? Where they have a valuation issue or the team isn't prepared for the transition?
yeah, it's like the business still relies heavily on the founder, the rainmaker. It takes a long time to transfer trust, to equip people to step up and really be
Yep.
those leaders and run the firm. And I'm also wondering, like, outside of designations, how do you measure that? How do you value, like, what are the metrics that tell you how equipped the team is to handle the owner not being there?
Well, I can share what we did. In addition
Sure.
to like just the designations and the training, in every single client meeting, we had a minimum of 2 team members and in some cases even 3. So for every single relationship that I was the primary on, they had other people on the team that they had a lot of, I mean, hours and hours over years of meetings, a lot of FaceTime with. We also really promoted our team members making content on their own. So like I talked about, our blog was a big lead source for the firm. And we really encouraged our team members to write content for that and let's publish it, let's promote it. And so it's not just Nathan that's the thought leader. It's, oh, there's all these other people that are very technically very competent and very capable. One of our core values was thirst for learning. Like we just always want to learn. We had this insatiable curiosity. And so every Friday morning was a learning event. So we would have internal speakers, external speakers, we'd go over firm offerings, but every single Friday morning, the whole entire organization got together and we were going to learn for an hour or 2 together. And we really threw the advisors like into the deep end of the pool. Uh, it's like, all right, you're going to go and cover these 3 parts of the agenda. I'm going to cover this last one. Go for it. And I think as a leader, you have to trust that they want to do the right thing. They're probably going to make a couple mistakes, but that's the best way to learn. I think sometimes advisors that are owner operators can't get past that. Like they want to deliver such a high quality of service that they don't ever let their team members try and make a mistake. I wasn't afraid to do that. It's like, you know what, I'll step in, fix it here or there if we need to. We're not going to lose the relationship. And this is the best way for you to learn.
Yeah. I love that you encourage team members to do content on their own. Okay. I feel like there's a lot to unpack there, but the word that's coming to my mind is value creation. And I know that's something that obviously you've done. You do now, you look for that, and that's something that you can see and you can spot. So when I say that word value creation, and from you being on the side of selling your business and creating value and seeing what actually is valuable, how do you see firms doing that successfully now? Like what is the value that they should be focusing on creating?
A couple things come to mind, Emily, but one that I'll focus on initially that I think is an issue as an average across the industry is organic growth is one thing. So M&A has been super frothy for many, many years. That's how a lot of firms have been growing. But the organic growth side has really struggled to keep up. And that was a reason why we got as good of a valuation as we did is we grew 100% organically very, very quickly. And so that would probably be one thing I think that it seems like the industry needs to focus a little bit more on is we have to grow up every single year. You're either, what do they say? Green and growing or ripe and rotting.
I
So
literally had a call right before this where the advisor said those exact words.
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And so, and if you think about the average RIA, I mean, for the average RIA, the average client, 60, 65, they're approaching retirement. They're in a distribution phase. They're going to start taking money out, not adding money in. And so if you're not adding new relationships, you have a natural attrition over time, both of the AUM as well as the quantity and number of those households. Organic growth seems to be an area where the industry really needs to focus. And you do that by being an expert, being outspoken, being specific about how you're.
I heard a stat recently that kind of blew my mind. I'm going to totally get it wrong because I'm not reciting it exactly, but it was something along the lines of it was like 60 to 70% of firms are planning on engaging in M&A activity in the next 24 to 36 months. And only 2% of revenue is going towards organic growth. And I was like, it was something like that. Very large disparity between a growth versus organic growth.
Yep.
Now, I am seeing like somehow that's going to have to shift. There's going to have to be something because you can't just keep growing these businesses like with that don't have that value underneath it of the organic growth because that's going to collapse at some point. So how do you see that? And let's dive into organic growth. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I've heard very similar statistics, Emily. So yeah, tons of M&A activity, and it's a byproduct of. I mean, it can be a great way to grow. Like if you can bolt on $100 million of AUM, those deals take a lot of time. They're very high risk. The valuations are sky high, so they're expensive acquisitions, and you have to be really careful about who you're doing the transaction with as well. But there's just so much money being flooded into the industry for these types of acquisitions. Like the private equity marketplace has just been flooded with capital, and it needs some place to go. And a lot of these firms are paying prices that are just astronomical. Back to the organic growth side. So, sorry, what was your question was around how are you trying to connect M&A and the organic growth side?
Well, yeah, I guess like those percentages just seem kind of crazy to me. What is your opinion on why an inorganic growth is so high and organic growth is so low?
M&A it's just seems cool, right? Like, oh, we're going to go acquire a couple businesses, or we got bought out by private equity at this insane multiple.
Hmm.
And so it's cool, right? But I agree with you that there's a lot of these acquisitions going on, and there's so much money being flooded to these private equity firms that they're going out and buying these firms, but they're not focusing on, is the firm going to continue to grow on its own post acquisition? And it needs to, because most of these firms have natural attrition from the clientele. And whenever you have a transaction like this, it's always a very high risk period because the clients might not like the new owner, or they might not like how they have to repaper their accounts, or they might not like you have to, the client portal is now different, right? And so you're changing something up for, a 75-year-old client that's done the same thing the same way for 20 years. So it's also a very high risk period, but it can be a good way to bolt on considerable size and scale. So being able to bolt on a couple hundred million of AUM. A lot of these firms are also looking at their next exit as well. And so they're saying, hey, if we can roll up a bunch of these firms and let's say they're going to pay 3 times revenue, if we can hit certain economies of scale and certain size, we can have an exit for 4, 5 times. And so they're looking for that multiple expansion as they grow. So
Hmm.
most of these private equity funds will have a life cycle that's anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And so they're flooded with capital. Let's go buy practices. Even if we're paying 2 to 3x, which is a lot of money, we're going to sell this thing in 5 to 10 years at X. And then that's going to be our return.
Let's think about you as an investor now evaluating these businesses. What are some red flags that you see right away that you're like, oh, that's a no for me?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Where do we start? How much time do we have to record this? Good. That is, that's the hardest part is in any type of small business, there are so many places where you can, you know, bury dead bodies, right? And have trouble, hidden in the closet somewhere.
You
And
get under the
so,
hood and you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to go any farther under the hood.
and every owner thinks that their business is running super well and they're doing a great job. I mean, I'm sure we were guilty of the same thing. They just think that they're doing an amazing job because they built this great business, when in reality there's some really significant structural issues. So I mean, for context, over the last 9, 10 months, I've probably looked at 400 or 500 different businesses to invest in, and I think we've only written offers on 4 of them, maybe 5. And so anything from financial performance to transition risk to customer concentration. There were a couple of businesses where a significant amount of the revenue was just one relationship, and there was no contractual obligation for that relationship to stick. So that's a single point of failure. So that was an issue. Transition risk has been another problem. So a lot of times these owners, they built a business, but they're really the ones in the weeds every day, making sure that the trains run on time, but they want to sell and get out. Well, that's a transition risk, especially if you're
Yeah.
coming in, you don't have immediate experience. That again comes back to the I said earlier, which is the more valuable you are, the less valuable your business is. And so if there have been businesses where the owners are truly absent, they're truly only there for a few hours a week. They've got a general manager that they pay really well. or a CEO that's got equity. And those are, you just have to think about what's the risk profile of this business from an outside investor. And those same concepts apply to RIAs as well. So if you have a really diversified customer base, if you've got a lot of licensed team members that can do the work, if you're growing organically, if you're profitable, you don't have any compliance or legal issues, right? And kind of go down the list. Um, all those ideas convey.
I feel like a lot of advisors are, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're growing the practice, you're not necessarily thinking about the end in mind. Like I want to exit this someday, I want to build this enterprise. You're kind of just thinking about how do I grow this thing and how do I get clients and how do I stay sane and so
Yep.
yeah, like you wake up, years in and then you think about exiting and then you have a lot of work to do. So what are some practical things that an advisor in growth mode who has no idea when they want to sell, but they know they want to have a solid asset to sell, not necessarily like a lifestyle business that depends on them fully. What are the things they should just do now or what's the mindset they should have now so they're not in a place where they have like an oh shit moment in a few years?
Totally. So we can swear on this podcast?
Yes,
Awesome. uh,
anything you want.
you hit the nail on the head. It's a great question, Emily, because, and this happened to us. So I had this experience. So most advisors, they build this business. They think it's great. They think they've dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's. They get a great offer from a potential acquirer, and then they go through a valuation process. Well, turns out, actually, from an outsider's perspective, that hey, there's 4 or 5 things that are risk factors or are not going well inside of your business. And by that point, it's too late, right?
Mm,
Maybe you've already committed to the transaction. You've already kind of mentally started to spend the money. You do need to retire. So I don't think it's a bad idea for firms to get a valuation done even every few years and to have an outside expert that does hundreds of these a year take a look under the hood and see what's working well, what's not, what are maybe some things that we can improve on over the next 6 to 12 months. And that would be great context because then you're at least getting some feedback every few years in terms of the value of your business. One, that's good for your own financial planning to have some idea of what's this thing worth,
right.
for all this work and all this effort, what can I potentially sell this for? But then operationally, what are some things we need to work on and improve? Like an example is one of the things that helped us is we had very well written, documented employment agreements with restrictive covenants like non solicitation agreements for all of our team members, signed, documented for everybody. And the valuation expert said, most, probably over half of firms don't do that. And that's actually a
Mm,
huge risk. It's because think about an outsider. What if you sell, half your team decides to leave? If they don't have a non-solicitation, they could take the book of business with them. And so that's just one example. That was one thing we had done well that gave us some brownie points, but most people aren't thinking about a lot of that stuff year to year. And so getting a valuation done every few years is a good little, kind of health check, I think.
that's really smart. So then on the flip side, so part of your niche now in Sonoran Ridge Capital is you invest in highly specialized service businesses.
Yep.
So I want to dive into that with you a bit too. So what are you looking for? Why highly specialized?
Yeah.
Take me there.
So highly specialized niche focus because the playbook works with Consilio, right? With the
Yeah.
last RIA.
Hmm.
And so we're okay if the business just picks a very specific vertical and becomes a subject matter expert in it. So a good example of that is there was a firm here in town in the greater Phoenix area where I live that installed nurse call stations inside of major medical centers. So if you've ever been to a hospital, that little call the nurse button, it's actually a
Yeah.
very sophisticated system, costs millions of dollars. It's plugged into the hospital database, the whole 9 yards. And that's what they did. So they had the capability of doing other stuff like CCTV and other things associated with safety and security, but they were known as like, hey, we do this one thing really, really well. The other thing we look for in businesses, if there's some type of a regulatory moat or tailwind around the business. So in that same example, those nurse call stations, they're required by law to be installed. They're required by law to be inspected at a regular cadence, and they're required by law to be maintained. So if there's ever damaged goods. So anytime the law is written in such a manner that supports your business or service or provides some type of protection around it, we love businesses like that. Those are the 2 things we really look for inside of an
Hmm.
organization.
Yeah. So, okay. I feel like just and you said this earlier when you were going into your story about Consilio, and just the more specific you get, it's counterintuitive because you think that you're going to be saying no to all these opportunities. And yeah, you are. But what happens is you experience like the 10x return inside of where you're doubling down. So, um, well, I've totally lost my train of thought on that. That I think, oh, I remembered. This is my mom brain just coming out.
It's all good.
So I think my one of my philosophies is with I think we're going more in that direction largely due to AI and technology.
Hmm.
And just it's exponential. We're only at the beginning of it. Even us as humans and as consumers, we're conditioned to expect extremely personalized services. And so
Yeah.
the generic approach just is pretty much irrelevant now. And so what is your philosophy specifically with service-based businesses? And how is AI a threat and a real risk and a real opportunity when you're looking at it from the investor perspective?
I'll say on just RIAs initially, but I think it's both a risk as well as a catalyst. And so I don't subscribe to the notion that financial advisors are going away because, if I'm a, wealthy business owner or executive and I'm trying to figure out how to, effectively pass down to my kids and make sure they have the right values, right? And doing all that type of planning, that there's a certain human component that people are really looking for.
Mhm.
And whether we like it or hate it, like money at the end of the day is such a cornerstone to our day to day life. And money is a very emotional thing. It's a reason why we get in a lot of fights. It's a reason why there's a lot of divorces. It's a cause for a lot of stress. And it's really difficult, even if the AI is absolutely brilliant, to quell all those concerns. So I think it's a huge catalyst for people that can employ it effectively. I think it's going to be operationally a huge catalyst for advisory firms, like the need to have a lot of people placing trades or filling out paperwork. Like those days are gone.
Yeah.
And I think this goes way beyond just the AI note takers that have really hammered home the market. The other thing I've seen is I've seen a lot of firms and a lot of advisors sitting on the sidelines, understandably so, because they're concerned about violating their privacy policy, right? So,
Yeah.
Emily, if you're a client and I've got 3 years of your tax returns and balance sheet and all your personal information, do you really want me to dump that into ChatGPT? Absolutely not. But the ability to have those locked down instances with specific controls are becoming a lot more available, and a lot more firms are plugging into that. And so they're creating their own internal AI advisor. I had a conversation with a gentleman actually a week or two ago where they're creating an AI tool that's trained on their entire library of wealth, tax, and estate strategies. And they're like, we're going to be able to train people in a fraction of a time. They don't need to have 20 years of experience because we've got this library that they can tap into, that they can securely upload the client's information. It's not going to go to ChatGPT, but the system will be able to identify potential value adds and quantify that value for that specific person. And like that's huge. So like the ability to be more
Wow.
efficient, more effective, still need a human to deliver that messaging. I think the other obvious upgrade is going to be in the fact that AI is always on and always available, right? Most
Mhm.
advisors ask them, how many times do you see your clients a year? 2 to 4, maybe. And so that client is only getting a recommendation 2 to 4 times a year, perhaps maybe more if you're sending an email from time to time. But the AI is always on 24/7, 365, doesn't take a break, doesn't go on vacation. And so its ability to say, hey, Emily, we noticed that you had, we noticed Emily had a massive deposit in her checking account, or we noticed that the 401k allocation was updated. You might want to send an email or might want to connect with them. That is right around the corner as well.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, you've seen probably a lot more than I have just having this role with Vital's AI and the tech and how you can really get like really what the AI and what the tech is capable of. And I think it's very exciting. What I've been excited about is how much it's going to level the playing field because I really don't think it matters, and your example is a perfect example of this. Yes, your years of experience matters, but I don't think it's a competitive advantage anymore in the age of AI that we're in because everyone has the
Well,
same opportunity right now. And yeah, there's a lot I could say about that, but I think it's very exciting.
intelligence has been commoditized in many cases.
So so like what then, how do you make sure that, so if we've been basically building these businesses, at least advisors, I know this is different for other clients and businesses you're looking at, but if largely advisors have been going to market with knowledge and advice, and that's now commoditized and ubiquitous and like democratized, then where does that value lie? Is it the niche? Is it the specialization? Like, how would you answer that?
Yeah, the niche focus will definitely help.
Mhm.
In maybe not forever, but it'll definitely extend your runway because you're a subject matter expert in a particular area. And at the end of the day, even if the client has access to some of this stuff via Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, it still takes a human to implement a lot of these strategies and to understand it and to say, okay, does this strategy actually transfer over to the values of our family and what we're trying to accomplish? And that's the human component, right? If you're a client of mine and you're trying to figure out how to teach your children financial literacy and teach them, good spending habits and things like that, that's a human interaction, right? And so to have for the advisor to be able to shepherd and provide guidance and counsel to the client on some of those more human levels is going to be huge, or to be able to provide just super technical, really high value advice, very quantifiable value. That's going to be the way of the future. I think we're probably going to start to see a lot more like flat fee financial advisory firms popping up over the next few years where the
Mhm.
client's like, I just want advice. I no longer value like the traditional AUM model
Yeah.
because investment operations has become so commoditized and so much easier to do via technology. But they still want advice. They still want counsel. They still want a human to talk to or a specialist's knowledge. So I will not be surprised. I think we're going to see a lot more flat fee firms, a lot more flat fee services popping up over the next handful of years because it's just my opinion. But I think the customer, especially as you work up the net worth ladder, those types of households are much more confident and competent about how to set up their asset allocation or what ETFs to buy or even direct indexing, right, is really ubiquitous these days. And so the AUM side, I think, is going to be put under a lot of stress. And those folks that are able to quantify the value and just, hey, if we're going to offer a flat fee service, I think they'll become a lot more popular.
That's really interesting because, I mean, that's interesting on a number of levels. But so you're saying you're seeing a world where it's, hey, I pay my advisor this much, I get this advice, I get this support, these meetings, and it's not tied to the AUM of their account.
Yep.
Yeah, that does simplify things a lot. How does that conflict with the fiduciary side of the advisor?
Doesn't at all.
Tell me more.
If you're just paying me, let's say you're paying me $5,000 a year for financial planning guidance, as long as I'm giving guidance that is in your best interest, doesn't have any other conflicts of interest,
Hmm.
I can still meet the fiduciary standard in that
Yeah,
regard. I'm not getting paid a commission. I'm not getting a rev share from if I refer you to CPA or a lawyer. You just come to me for guidance. That's it.
yeah, that
Feedback.
makes
It's
sense.
it's super simple. In fact, I might even argue that it's a more transparent and even higher level of fiduciary guidance because, like in a traditional AUM model, let's say I'm charging you 1% for, let's use $1 million, it's 10 grand a year of revenue. I'm incentivized to have you give me more money so that I
Right.
make more.
Hmm.
I might not be incentivized to send you money so you can pay off a home or do a renovation.
Yeah.
And I think the part that's confusing for the client is under the AUM model is we're saying, okay, I'm going to charge you via your investments and I'm going to manage the portfolio, but you're also getting all this advice over here, which we know is where a lot of the value is, but I'm being billed via my investments. And so it's hard to separate the two of that 10,000, how much is going for asset management, how much is going for advice. So it's more opaque, I think, from the client's experience. And then the other friction point they have is if you say, all right, well, I have $1 million. You were managing $1 million, but now I'm going to make a deposit of another $1 million. That's two. Let's assume 1% remains constant. So now I'm paying you 20,000, two times the fee. Am I getting two times the service? Am I getting two times the
Right.
value? In a lot of cases, no,
Yeah.
maybe, but like the service model is relatively constant. And there are some clients that still want to be totally hands off. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to place trades. They don't want to set up the account registration. That's great. That model can work, right? I'm saying that I'm not saying it doesn't work in every instance, but I think as clients are still looking for more just advice over time, I would not be surprised if we start to see more flat fee offerings
Yeah,
coming up.
that actually makes a ton of sense. There's been, I feel like at firms I've worked at, there's been kind of constantly going around the mountain of like the value exchange and how do fees play in, how do AUM fees play in, and it was always a thing.
Yeah.
Last question, and then we'll go to lightning round. What other trends are you seeing right now, or what other predictions do you see?
I think we'll continue to see more and more startup RIAs over the years. I think the barrier for advisors that want to be an entrepreneur, they want to be a business owner, it has never been easier than it is today to set up an RIA. I'm not saying that everybody should do it. In fact, I think most advisors probably shouldn't, but I think we will start to see, I think we'll see the volume of independent firms continue to grow. It's just it's so much easier. And there's plenty of tools and really wonderful vendors and partners that you can work with. And so I think the independent space is going to have it's just continue to grow and flourish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do quick lightning round. What is the most overrated business building or scaling advice that you have received or that you've seen?
I'd have to think about that one, Emily. I don't know. Most overrated piece of business advice. I might say like the perception that the owner or operator has to do it all or check on everything. Right? They have to
Mhm.
ensure they have to touch every aspect of it. That would be my answer.
Yeah, that ties into everything we discussed. What is one tool you can't live without?
This is going to be a boring answer, but Claude, I use it like
Oh,
all day,
same.
every
That's
day.
my answer.
Yeah.
I know. What would we do
Um,
without it?
the other one, I use Microsoft's To Do pretty actively. So I'm kind of a power user of that. I live and breathe by checklists and to-do
Uh-huh.
lists. So that'd be another one.
I haven't heard of that. Microsoft's To Do?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, I'm sure there are probably other offerings that are I've just used it for so long that it's great. I've got different categories. I've got personal sections, financial sections. You can set recurring tasks like when I need to get ready to renew my CFP designation in a certain point in the year, that task pops up. So it's all automated for all the stuff. I've got like house maintenance tasks in there.
Yes.
So, way you gotta go check the irrigation system a couple times a year. That pops up, and so that would probably be a maybe a more valuable answer today is Microsoft's To Do.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. I freaking love Claude. Last night, so I thought it was gonna be nice. I'm in Colorado, and I bought stuff to like grill out, make kebabs, and I was like, "Oh, it's summer," and then it's been raining all week, so I was like, "Okay, Claude, I need to pivot my dinner plan. I have these ingredients. Tell me what to make." And I made one of the best dinners ever last night. It was like this saffron rice with all these veggies in it, and it was just a smash. And I'm like, I always thank it. I'm like, "Thank you. You're the best."
Well, when the AI overlords take over, you'll be in their good graces because you
I
are
will.
kind to them. Yeah.
And they yeah. I'm
Have you have you tried
anyway,
Claude for Excel yet?
no.
Holy cow! I don't know if you spend any time in Excel, but Claude for Excel is a game changer, total game changer.
I've built really sophisticated spreadsheets using ChatGPT, but
Is it
I only
cool?
use it when I'm, like, building something initially and I'm using it with clients, but it can,
This
like,
is the
build you
plug.
spreadsheets?
Yeah, it's a plugin in Excel. So you have to go download it, set it up into your O365 instance, but then you just add the add-in, open it up, and you just talk to it like anything else. But the cool thing is as well is let's say you're working with a client and they send you like 3 PDF statements and an Excel document, and you need to create this, working sheet to visualize this or to be able to interpret the data. You can not only talk to it, but you can also dump all of those documents into the chat window in the Excel window, and it
Oh my
processes
goodness.
it beautifully.
Okay, well, I've got some to-dos. I need to do Microsoft To Do and Claude for Excel.
There you go.
What are you most excited about right now?
Personal level, I finally signed up for flight lessons. And so
Yes.
I had a lesson earlier today. I was telling you before we got on the call, and
Mhm.
it's just a ton of fun. It's like the one thing I've wanted to do my entire life, and I'm finally doing it. And so it's cool. It's a ton of fun. It's also really hard. Like I haven't studied this hard since I took the CFP
Yeah,
exam.
like the
Like I feel
licensing
like
exams.
I'm back in school and having to learn like a new language all over again. From that instance, it's been tough, but extremely rewarding.
That's so cool, yeah. We were diving all into that. I love it. business advice you don't subscribe to.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. Love.
Yeah, I think that's rubbish advice. I think that especially today, the more honest and transparent people are, the the better your experience will be. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I think that's probably one of the worst pieces of advice is fake it till you make it.
Yeah. I love that. And then when you're not running Sonoran Ridge or flying airplanes, what are you doing?
My wife and I travel quite a bit, and outside of flying, which has consumed a lot of time, active. I love to work out, but specifically, I've been training for running a lot lately. So about a year ago, I hired a running coach,
Nice.
and he has helped me get PRs in every single distance. So like the mile, the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon. I am a much better runner at 38 years of age than I was at 28. And it's all because of Coach Zach and this work that we've been doing together. So that might be like one other parting idea is like if somebody's really interested in something, spending money on like a quality coach or trainer is always worth it.
That's so true. Yeah. Nathan, thank you so much for this conversation. I have a lot of
Yeah.
takeaways. I'm grateful for your time and how much value you shared with us today. And how can people connect with you and what you're doing?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to find me. I can get you the link and we can put it in
Yeah.
the description or the show notes. But yeah, that's probably the easiest way. I'm fairly active on there from time to time. So I'll respond to the message.
Thanks, Nathan. It was a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Emily. Great.
Bye. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. If this conversation resonated with you or you learned something new, make sure you follow the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes. And do me a favor, like and subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Comment on anything that you want to see or hear more of in the future as well. You can also stay connected by subscribing to the Wonder Weekly newsletter and connect with me, Emily, on LinkedIn at Emily Armstrong or Instagram, Emily Armstrong 2.0 for more insights on building modern client service firms. Until next time, keep on adapting, modernizing, and growing beyond referrals.